Hey everyone, welcome to the Wild Rift Patch Notes 3.0b, where we will be discussing the different balance changes and how it affects the competitive landscape. So first and foremost, there are two new skins, Obsidian Malphite Zombie Slayer Pantheon to be released March 3. So not the popular skins, but this will probably bought by those who main Pantheon and Malphite. So moving on to the accessories, I don't use accessories. So go to the events. So new event after the Yuumi event, join the Fluff, Ionian based event. And events are always good since it helps you get your champions faster and it helps the free-to-play players. So let's go to the more spicier things, which would be the champion changes. So first on our list is Fizz. So there is a third skill nerf and an ultimate nerf. So 10 damage on his third skill, 50 damage on his ultimate, which would be a 60 damage total damage nerf on his kit or his burst potential. So this would most probably felt on the early game if Fizz, since Fizz doesn't have his items yet in the early stages of the game. But once it goes to the mid to late game, this would be negligible and Fizz would still be one-shotting you once he gets his items. So this tried to make his early game, tried to prevent the early game 100-0 burst, which is a good nerf. And Fizz is still generally a strong solo queue pick and a good counter pick competitively. So good nerf, but Fizz is still a good pick. So next would be Jax. So interesting nerf onto the Jax since he's been dominating solo queue, which is from 10.5 to 8.5, which is a 2% attack speed nerf. So if we do some quick maths, so 10.5 times 10, since his passive stacks for until 10 stacks, 105. Then 8.5 times 10, 85. So this is a total 20% attack speed nerf on his passive, which is which hurts Jax, but since his kit is super overloaded with short cooldowns and a lot of animation cancel with the second skill, Jax will still be a solo queue menace. It will be still a very, very strong pick and will probably still be a funnel pick when it comes to the competitive meta. So still a strong pick, but good nerf, but Jax is still strong once it reaches the later stages of the game. Next would be Lulu, one of the stronger solo queue picks wherein she doesn't need a lot of mechanical skill. So they just decided to nerf her, reduce the second skill by 1 second, which is nothing. But this is the more interesting change. They reduced the skill value by 5 level 1 and then by 25 when it's max level. So this hurts her shielding a bit, but she would still fulfill the purpose of being a strong pick. So what Lulu players could do is they could just max second skill instead of maxing the third skill. So max second, then third, and then first. Still, she's not affected at all by this nurse. Still the same pick. Still very, very strong in solo queue. Competitively is used sometimes when it's a funnel comp. So Yuumi, I think this is the biggest change. So a lot of changes on her kit. So what Riot is saying is that Yuumi is having a hard time. Players are struggling with playing Yuumi. So they're giving her buffs overall on her kit. So they increased the mana regen from 0.9 to 1.3. So big mana regen buff. And then a passive buff as well. So they decreased the cooldown of his passive. So I think this is a good change because what would differentiate bad from good Yuumi players is how they could use the passive. Because what bad Yuumi players do, they just stay inside. They stay attached the whole game. They don't go out. And once they run out of mana, they just go home. They don't. But better Yuumi players would utilize the passive because it gives shield and mana as well. So aside from that, they buffed her first skill, minus 20 mana, plus 2% damage, and plus 20 base damage on both based and empowered base, which is when she's not attached and when she's attached. So interesting buff. And then her second skill is also buffed as well. So they increased the AP ratio from 1.67 to 2. And then last buff would be the final chapter. So they increased the damage per wave by 20 on all levels. So what they did here is they made Yuumi's laning a bit stronger, especially with this. This is the biggest change, which they increased her damage overall. They made her trading a lot better, which is one of her clear weakness. And teams, Yuumi players that can utilize her first skill will benefit the most instead of being a heal bot that just spams third skill. So I think this is a good change, but Yuumi is already a strong pick. Is the problem with Yuumi is that people didn't know how to use her and how to play her. Because if Yuumi attaches into you, you don't know what to do. As well as if you're a Yuumi player and you attach to someone, you don't know how to hit your first skill. When first timing a Yuumi, I had a hard time using her first skill as well. But I think players are getting better, and Yuumi is being utilized a lot more, and she's slowly becoming OP. And they even buffed her, so I think Yumi's priority will really go up in this patch. Since not only is she used in the support, she's also being used in the Baron lane, which just goes to show on how strong her kit is and how she can be used even though she doesn't attach to anyone. So this is a very scary change. This is a very scary change, and if it goes out of hand, it's probably a nerf on her next patch. So gameplay changes. They reduced the combined cost. I think this is only used on probably ADCs, since Bruisers always buy Sterak, since it gives generally more stats, it gives more HP, and it's good against both AP and AD. So if you're an ADC, you would only buy this if there are 3 or more AP, or there's an AP champion like Akali just one-shotting you. So this is a good buff, but people would still rather buy Guardian Angel than Mo. They would only buy Mo if their Guardian Angel is on cooldown. Rune Changes, Electrocute. They increased the base damage by 5. Okay, this is nothing. But this is the more interesting thing, which is the cooldown from 25 to 20 seconds. So what this means is that they improved the trades for Electrocute on the laning phase. This is more for the laning phase, because before you could only trade once every 2 waves or 1.5 waves. Now you could use an Electrocute every wave. So they want to make this a more damage oriented rune in the laning phase. But when it comes to the team fights, I don't think this changes, because team fights don't last 20 seconds. They just last 5 to 10 seconds and they're done. So laning phase change on to the Electrocute. Next would be Triumph. I think ever since the brutal nerf, more junglers have been using this rune, and they even buffed it now. So they're encouraging people to get this rune, which is very interesting because people are already getting this rune ever since the brutal nerf. Next would be the Hunter Genius. So this is a rune that's not being picked often because it's outperformed by the opposing runes, which is Pathfinder and Sweet Tooth. Before Mastermind, but since Mastermind got nerfed, people go Pathfinder or Sweet Tooth now. So they want to make another competitive rune, which is Hunter Genius. This would help, but it would still not be picked by those who use Pathfinder and Sweet Tooth. People would still rather pick those two. This would probably help for people with high cooldown such as Gragas, probably some Eve, but it depends. Phase Rush, they decrease the cooldown from 50 seconds to 12 seconds. So they want to make similar to Electrocute. They want to make the laning phase and help people make good trades and good decisions with the Phase Rush. But I think Phase Rush is still weak compared to the other dominating runes, which is Conqueror, Aftershock, even Font of Life. So those runes are still probably better, but maybe it's something that could be used by Gragas or Yana, so those types of champions that could proc Phase Rush in one rotation of spells. So we might be seeing Phase Rush, but I doubt. People would still rather use Conqueror on Ariana rather than Phase Rush. So next would be Sweet Tooth. I think all laners use this. So they reduce the bonus honey fruit healing by 5% and the gold from 20 to 15. So since a honey fruit gives 3 fruits, a honey fruit plant gives 3 fruits, so it would be from 60 gold to 45 gold, which is a 15 gold nerf overall. I think this is still a good rune, and this is still a rune that will be picked by the laners, because if you're able to get both the tower honey fruit and the river honey fruit, Before you would get 120 gold. Now it's only 90 gold, which is approximately 2 to 3 minions. It's still really good. And it helps increase your gold. And it gives more healing as well. So it will help your laning phase. Next is bone plating from 45 seconds to 35 seconds. I think this is more for laning. Helping those who choose bone plating in the lane. In the jungle, I don't think that this changes much. But for laners, this helps since it would make them be able to trade better once they have bone plating up. So conditioning, I think this is the least used rune. This is the least used rune in the Resolve 3. So from 5 minutes to 3 minutes, but they nerfed the starting armor from 8 to 5. They tried to make this relevant, but I don't think it's as good as the other runes such as bone plating, Titan, even Resolve and Adaptive. I think it will still be less pick runes. Will probably only used by Ramos, Mundo, Malphite, those who actually benefit on the bonus armor resist. So it wouldn't make people start use conditioning. And then next would be Resolve Hunter Titan. So they reduced the tenacity, which is a really, really good nerf and something that I've been wanting ever since this rune is giga busted, giga broken, makes crowd controls effectively useless. If you have full stacks of Titan plus Mercury threads, it would make all of the crowd control less than a second. So good nerf onto this. I wish it was 10% because if there was no Titan, it would encourage people to buy Quicksilver Sash and it would make the boots enchantment variety a lot better. So step into the right directions, but people will still use Titan and it's still a very good rune overall. And it also gives 100 HP on full stacks. So last would be Second Wind. So regeneration time from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. So this would help both the laning phase and the mid game. Competitively, it really helps the mid game since there are a lot of poke champions right now like Ziggs, Varus, Morgana, all of those APCs, even Jace. So this rune would help against them. And also the laning phase, it would help those who have no sustain have better sustain. And so this would most likely be used in the Baron lane. And probably a bit of mid lane. So that's it. So to summarize, what they did here is that the key changes here is a Fizz, negligible nerf. Jax, a big nerf, but the champion's still broken. Lulu, nothing, not a slight nerf, but still very strong. Yuumi, they buff, so there's a chance that this can go autoban status competitively. It's either a good buff or a disaster buff where she'll be too OP. So very excited. This is where I'm most excited to see the changes. Wherein will Yuumi be a first pick in the competitive meta or not? So we have to see in the following days. Gameplay changes. I think what they did here is they tried to make the variety of the runes a lot better by making their laning phase better. For example, electrocute. So a lot of cooldown buffs here. So a lot of reduced cooldown, and this would help the laning phase. So I don't think the rune variation will change much. People will still use Conqueror, people will still use Titan and bone plating. It's interesting on how I think the most impactful change is the Second Wind. This is a very good change for especially those who play Baron lane, and people might go Second Wind instead of Adaptive or bone plating. So let's see on how the players will adjust, and that is it. Before we end, there are two key changes that Riot has implemented but not placed in the patch notes. So number one is the matchmaking changes. So if you are Diamond and above, you might be experiencing better gains. So you wouldn't anymore get the plus 10 minus 15, but rather it would be plus 10 minus 10 or even better plus 15 minus 10, which I think is a good change because it encourages Diamond players to play more. And with the system before, the minus 15 minus 10, it discourages players from playing. And the second change is the rank changes, the rank duo, trio, 5-man changes for Diamond Plus. Since if you are Master, before you could duo with Grandmaster or Diamond, now it's from Diamond 2 to Master. And then if you're Grandmaster, you can only duo with Master players or Grandmaster players. And if you're Challenger, you can only play with other Challenger players. So those are the changes that have been implemented, and that is it for me. So if you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Ciao, ciao.
I'm finally facing it all, fearless.